Yeah. Morena koutou. Morena. No mai, haere mai, ki tēnei hui. This is the last of the year. No mai, haere mai, ki ngā manuhiri. Welcome to all our guests here today. It's good to see you here today. This is our last after what has been a very long year, and hopefully we'll all end on a happy note and then be able to have a good rest over the holidays. So welcome everyone. We have apologies from Councillor Bunting. Somebody move. Councillor.
Could I just record that I will be absent probably between 11:45 and 12:15?
Sure. And Councillor Casson moved. Councillor.
I'll be needing to leave about 3 p.m, but I'm sure that you'll be finished by then.
That's the goal. That's the goal, Councillor McPherson.
So I also have to go at about 1:30.
Okay, so we've got a few.
I need to leave at 4. I'm preloading for Andrew's place.
Yes, I'm sure we can fit in plenty of time for that. So with the people living to leave in between or early, and for Councillor Bunting not being here, we've got a mover, James Casson, Councillor McPherson seconds it. All in favour? Carried. The agenda so you'll notice that we confirmed the agenda. Item 8 got struck from the agenda due to the request of the presenter because the reports that they want to bring to the table are not just quite ready. So they'll be the first thing in the new year. Item 9, we're just going to accommodate the speakers by bringing that up to just after the Community and Services minutes, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, so we'll have that cluster of conversation around the gardens at the same time to accommodate the visitors. Right, thank you everyone. So are there any declarations of interest? Oh, sorry, no I didn't. Confirmation of the agenda. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved Councillor Henry, seconded Councillor Casson. All in favour? Thank you. Declarations of interest, if there are any? There being none, we will carry on, and we will carry on to the public forum. Not so certain. Yep. So we do have still one person who would like to speak in the public forum. Jeanette Holborough. Yes, thank you. And so you're speaking to item 11 around the community occupancy applications. If you're able to leave them a little bit of time at the end for questions, that's ideal. Thank you.
That button? Okay, thank you. Chair Paula, Your Worship, Mayor King and councillors, tēnā koutou katoa. I'm Jeanette Holborough, Chairperson of Citizens Advice Bureau, Hamilton. And we're here this morning to speak in support of the new 10-year lease agreement that has been proposed by the Hamilton City Council staff for CAB's use of Reed Studio at 55 Victoria Street. We're in favour of the lease proposal because, first of all, a 10-year lease will give CAB good security of tenure. It'll enable us to focus on the real job that we've all volunteered for, which is to serve our community and provide information and support to anyone who asks for help. Also, secondly, having the rent of the property being held at a figure that we can manage on our variable income from funding sources is very helpful. We're continually applying for grant funds to sustain our operation, and sources seem to be reluctant to commit to regular amounts, so we're operating on an elastic shoestring. The annual grant that we receive from Hamilton City Council provides the backbone of our funding. We're very grateful for this, as we would not be able to operate without it. Thirdly, we are happy to cooperate with the Waikato Dance Performance Trust in sharing the use of the St Peter's Hall kitchen when needed. CAB Hamilton and the dance studio operate largely at different times of the day, and we will be able to coexist in this space without interfering with each other. It is a good use of the space. This will mean that we can use the small kitchen and Reed studio as an extra interview training room when needed, which is becoming a daily occurrence. Reed Studio is the best location for a Citizens Advice Bureau in the central city. We are known there and it's easily found. We're finding that our walk-ins this year, we're averaging about 200 walk-in clients a month, and our volunteers are finding that their problems are getting more complex, and many take more than half an hour to solve. Inquiries about benefits, finance, housing, land, legal and government have all gone up. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Council for their ongoing support of Citizens Advice Bureau. We've been here since 1973. I'd like to especially thank the Council staff, especially Karen Kwok, Andy Mannering and Sandra Larson, for their continuing support and understanding of our role and needs to provide a good service. And I'd like to thank all the councillors for providing this opportunity to speak at a council meeting and taking time to listen to our views. Without the council's ongoing support with premises and funding, we couldn't exist. So please tick option 1.
Thank you very much. I'll see if there's any questions. Doesn't look like there are any. Thank you for taking the time to come in, and thank you very much for all the good work that you and your team do. I know it gets exceptionally busy just before Christmas as well, so thinking of you all at this busy time, and thank you. No more people in the public want to have a word? No? Thank you for that. So we'll move on to item 5, which is the confirmation of the Community and Services minutes from 30th of October. I'm happy to move. We can take them as read. Are there any questions or concerns from the minutes? No? May I have a second? Question? Sorry. Yeah.
Concerning point 9 around the external funding plan, just around the wording, Madam Chair, where it's got funds, funders, including iwi-related funds that could be utilised. I think the sentiment that was expressed there was that there's possible potential for partnership with iwi in utilising that funding or gaining that funding, not the fact that it could be utilised, but that there's potential for partnership there.
Yeah, so we changed the wording to say and to explore the fundership, explore the sponsorship available through iwi.
Thank you.
Is that okay? Thank you for that. Any other questions? No. Could I please have a seconder? Councillor Taylor. All in favour? Opposed? Carried. That brings us now on to, we're not going to do the Chair's report, we're going to bring all of the guidance items forward. So we're now on item 9 on page 23, which is the Hamilton Gardens Management Plan, and then this will be followed by item 10 around the trust proposal. Good morning, Helen. Peter.
Good morning, Chair and councillors. So this report is a response to the resolution from the 10-year plan to consider adoption of the Peter Segal long-term vision for the Hamilton Gardens. We will be referring to this plan as the Hamilton Gardens Development Master Plan, or the Master Plan, and it's attached to this report on page 28. So the Hamilton Gardens has reserved status, and for Council to adopt the Master Plan, a review of the Hamilton Gardens Management Plan is required. So there's no conflict between the current or the operative management plan and the first stage of development. So on page 24, you'll see the stages broken down into 4 stages. Stage 1 is consistent with the existing or the operative management plan. However, the next 3 stages of development, or stages 2 to 4 in the report, do require incorporation with the management plan. So the current works can progress and are progressing, but the rest are subject to review. So the process consists of preparing a draft, which will be brought back to this committee for approval. Some preliminary discussions have occurred with a number of groups, so we are requesting a waiver of a 1-month pre-consultation process. It is optional under the Reserves Act, but it does require a decision from this council. So we have had preliminary discussions. We have advised groups that we will be consulting with them as part of the mandatory 2-month consultation process, which is part of the process. Once we have a draft prepared, we'll bring it back to this committee for approval and then undertake and seek approval for that 2-month mandatory consultation. And there'll be hearings and deliberations as part of that process if submitters wish to speak. So Peter and I are available for questions.
Massive amount of work has gone into this, so just want to note that. Thank you for all the work that you and your team have done too. It's very, very impressive in this report. Thank you. Questions? Councillor Mallett.
Thank you. Just want a bit of clarity on the funding and the expenditure and the timing of it. I'm looking at there's lots of very impressive photos, and they are impressive. I'm not being cynical when I say that. But I've looked through here, there's when you go to the next item, which is the development trust proposal, and there's a graph, but that's not really very clear. If we could just have a, the year, and then the capital funding and the revenue or operating funding would be very helpful.
Yeah. So we'll bring back, we will be bringing back a report as part of the annual plan to do some reforecasting. So at the time of the 10-year plan, we did budget, but on a very basic plan at the time, so the resolution was kind of prepared that day.
Yep.
So, and we have got some applications in currently for funding. As you'll be aware, we've got funding application into the Provincial Growth Fund. If that funding, if we're successful, that will actually change the forecast. So
I understand the whole thing's driven by you have to get the funding approved,
correct.
but just some sort of outline on the assumption that the funding is approved.
Yes.
Otherwise, we're flying a little bit blind.
Yeah, so we'll bring back that back as part of the annual plan.
Okay, just to be clear, so the decision we're talking about today, which is so we're looking about item 9, which is on page 23, the resolution, talks about following the Reserves Acts, review the management plan. So that's something we have to do, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, so all our reserves and plans need to be checked every now and then, and I've never quite followed
Correct.
how often
And to
it has to be
undertake the review, we require a decision from council.
So
to do that.
that's just business as usual. We just have to do that anyway? Okay.
Well, I think there's another reason too, because the current management plan has stage 1 of all those coloured graphs there on the agenda item. On 4 stages.
So you're talking about these?
Yeah. So we need to have a new management plan that has stages 2, 3, and 4 in it. Otherwise, we can't actually do those developments if we don't have an approved management plan.
Okay. So what you're asking for now is our approval to go forward and do this plan and bring that back to us.
Yeah. So a draft plan comes back to you and then goes out to consultation with the public. We get feedback on that, we tweak that, and then we approve a final.
So maybe what I'm asking for is in the draft plan, can you make sure there's years and it quite clearly says, and just work on the assumption, I suppose, so this is what we want to do, this is what it's going to cost, and this is how we think we can fund it. I'm teaching to suck eggs, I suppose, but if you could suck some eggs for me, please.
We won't put it in the actual plan, but in the operative plan, because it's a high-level document that you need to be able to make decisions on at any point. The budget decisions get made at the long-term plan. But when we bring back the report with the draft management plan, we'll attach the budget, the proposed budget to it.
Okay, but that won't be part of the plan. The plan stands alone, does it?
Yeah, the plan is the intention to develop the gardens. The long-term plan is where your budget sits.
So your funding is in your LTP and your annual plan, and with the current development that we've been doing for the 5 gardens and what we've been doing over the last 4 years, we've been reporting that through to the Finance Committee with
Okay.
reports through Chris's Capital Delivery Program now, and prior to that there was individual reports. I think it can be a bit fluid, so if we get a funding application ahead of time, then that funding plan would change and we'd keep the Finance Committee aware of that. So if we put that into a management plan, it would pretty become potentially out of date quite quickly. So I think that's better that that's separate. We can allude to it, but I think it's more prudent, and we do that for our other management plans, to have the financing of those projects actually reported through to
Okay,
council
the
on a
problem
regular
is
basis.
you're kind of reporting to us in a silo sort of system, and I know there may be good reasons for that, but I just feel uncomfortable approving stuff without knowing the funding that's behind it. So if that can be, when that comes back as an attachment, so it won't be part of the plan, and I can understand that part of it, that's the vision, if you like.
So I think
and
they
then-
have.
It will be
provided-
And then
part
the
of
funding,
report,
then the funding needs to come
Yep.
with it as well. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's your questions? Finished? Thank you very much. Councillor Pascoe.
Thanks, Chair. Look, 2B of the staff recommendation, we're approving the review today of the Hamilton Garden Management Plan. If I look over at paragraph 14 under bullet point 2, undertake targeted consultation and business analysis on charging entry. Have we not already done that to Africa? You know, I recall having read reports from Horwitz and others about, you know, the pros and cons of charging. Are we going to redo that again, or?
We'll be using the information that we've got. It's just that if we are going to consider charging, it needs to be allowed for in the management plan. So it's just, and it just gives us the ability to pull it into this process.
Okay, so we may not need to undertake the business analysis on charging, given that we've already got those reports, or we might only really need to do a very quick update to see
Correct.
whether anything has changed. But
It'll
we're
be a
not
quick
going to
update.
go to somebody else and redo the whole thing again.
No, we've got the information. We need to update that and incorporate it into the management plan. Yeah.
Okay, and then my other little gripe, I suppose, is under paragraph 21, and I'm seeing this creeping into a lot more reports now of saying that it's all being done within existing operational budgets. I think there should be a cost disclosed as to this whole review, including internal staff time and what the review is going to cost, because I think we're giving that we're giving that approval, aren't we, today, to go out and consult?
No, that will come back
That's
to
the
you.
next step along
That's
the
the
way,
next step,
yeah.
yes.
So maybe in the next report, could we have some quantification of what this review is costing, even though we know that you're not seeking further funds to do it, but, you know, I think it's important that we do have a view of, you know, what the cost is of undertaking these studies.
Yeah, we'll do the number of hours and do it by the multiplier of staff time, and also if there's any external costs, we'll include that.
Yeah, and I suspect there will
Yeah.
be, even if you go back to Allworths for an update, there will be some sort of cost there, and I suspect that there will be other externals that might get called in at different stages too.
Yeah, it's a good point, and we discussed this at senior leadership team yesterday, just to make sure that we're getting consistency right across our report. So David's been a hard taskmaster on that, and it'll improve in the new year, I can guarantee that.
Good, thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Gallagher.
Yes, just 2 questions. Obviously, with regard to the word paid entry at appropriate time, that's just an ongoing option and monitor, particularly if we're not successful with our surrounding councils to contribute funding. Okay, thank you. With regard to the access, does that then, like, for example, you know, things like speed limits along Cobham Drive, the pedestrian aspect from in Nixon Street area, you know, there's an opportunity in the future for another underpass to access the gardens. Also with the Peacocks Bridge, what might pedestrian access or road access from Peacocks to the gardens, East Town Belt Precinct? I take that would include all of that, would it?
Yes, mainly as it affects the garden site. It can't really, the management plan can't cover those adjacent roads.
But in that, it obviously, it's a narrow, you know, what are the broader access issues to the gardens?
It would address those, yes.
Yeah. Will there be any thought given to, if there is any link, we own some green space by the Glenview Club, for example, will any thought in the long term be given if there is an appropriate way in which that might be linked or not?
We'd prefer that it wasn't linked. It would provide another diving site and another entrance. I think it would increase the problems we have with vandalism.
So the issue of pedestrian access would be from the, say, the Peacocks, you know, as a local neighbourhood, and road access. You would be giving some recommendations about what the new road bridge may look like in terms of cycle pedestrian access as they might access the gardens?
There would be a bit outside the capacity of the management plan, really, that reserves that management.
Well,
But Peter and Helen and the team will be involved with Chris's people around the design of the bridge and all those ancillary things. As Peter says, the management plan's about the footprint of the gardens. It'll have the contextual information in there, but I can assure you that there will be an integrated approach that Peter's team work with Chris's team so that we think of all those access issues wider than the garden's footprint.
obviously, because we do have constraints with Cobham Drive, you know, which we're working on, obviously. Thank you. No, that's fine. Thank you.
Councillor McPherson.
Thanks. I just want to explore the two different options in 19 and 20 that are referred to for consultation. When I read paragraph 20, the second bullet point, it seems to be saying to me, and I want to check whether I'm right, that Peter, you've held consultation the equivalent of the 1 month formal pre-consultation anyway, and your staff seem to be saying that's not necessary because you've already done that as part of your preparation for this. So, because normally I'd be in favour of consulting with key stakeholders, but you, as well as the public one. But is this telling me that you've already done that, Peter?
Well, I suppose not fully. Where we're reviewing a management plan, it is common not to have that extra stage of consultation because people have already got that plan. But we have been consulting just widely, particularly at a technical level with people like the bus operators and transit, trying to find the right solution for the master plan.
I guess the difference with this one is it not that it's while it's not a qualitative change, it's a quantitative change. We're doing the whole lot and bringing them into the plan rather than just a handful of gardens.
That 1 month consultation would most commonly be applied for a new, like if you were doing a new management plan from scratch, I guess. So, yeah, because we have, the reason we're requesting the waiver is because, you know, we have got good relationships with a lot of the key stakeholders. Peter is constantly engaging with those stakeholders. So it's not an indication that everyone approves of everything in the management plan. We'll undertake that as part of the 2 month mandatory, but there has, you know, Peter has, the plan that he's got in place has been informed by a lot of his discussions. So
No, I'm just trying to check really whether there's anyone that's missed, any key stakeholders that have missed out on getting a heads up about this before you go into the public consultation. If there were, there would be more of an argument for option 2 rather than 1, maybe.
Yeah, I think most of the main stakeholders are familiar with it. And it was only 6 years ago when we last reviewed the management plan too.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Any further questions? Okay, do we have a mover and a seconder? Councillor O'Leary, Councillor Henry, and we'll go into debate. As the mover, Angela. Councillor Taylor, debate.
Yeah, thank you, Paula. Yeah, look, I just want to say I support this process. I'm particularly keen on you know, some decent public consultation. It's a really important asset to the people of Hamilton. As we know, there's a real sense of ownership there. And I think the consultation on the details in this plan needs to be rigorous and thorough. There's some significant, exciting changes in the plan, but particularly in the later stages, some infrastructural changes. And I just would be really good for the public to be absolutely aware of things such as the future of the rhododendron lawn and stuff like that. Just so that they really grasp it. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it ultimately going out for consultation and really getting the public involved. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor McPherson.
I firstly agree with everything Jeff said. I think the consultation is probably also an opportunity to get the public excited about the final vision for the garden and looking forward to it and starting to champion it more. We've all sort of bemoaned the fact a bit that we don't, as a community, really promote the gardens enough. and that's not anyone's fault. It's just it's sort of almost grown organically on us, and Hamiltonians sort of take it for granted a bit too much. And this will just help remind people that it's not to be taken for granted. It's something that we've really we can showcase the city about. So I think we should use this as an opportunity for more than just your formal consultation.
Thank you, Councillor McPherson. Councillor Mallett.
Thank you. I support this going forward. I do hope that the public are provided with an analysis of what this is going to cost them as well. So it's important that they understand the great benefits they'll be getting from the garden, but it is also important that they understand what they will be foregoing, and that will predominantly be some impact on their rates to fund the operating costs and the financing costs, the interest and whatnot. I do appreciate there's an awful lot of third-party, very generous people who support this, the Hamilton Gardens, and have for a long time, and hopefully they'll continue to fund it for a long time. But it is important our community understands the full implications of these developments. I do still see the charge for entry sort of floating around in the ether. I'm not sure if that will be considered as part of. I assume that's not part of the plan that we're doing.
It will be part of the plan, and that the plan will allow for it if council at some point made that decision. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you. Obviously, the next item is a critical complement to this particular item. Fully support the plan going ahead. Again, I know I'm a cracked record, and I accept that, but this is where the Hamilton Gardens, in my view, should be one of the candidates for a long-term aspiration of regional funding. And I'm actually happy for the charging to be on the table, but what we need to do in our PR, this was never, ever, ever about Hamilton residents paying to go into their gardens. This was never about that. This was never about kids under 12 paying to go in. This was purely, at some stage of the development of the gardens, for the people who did not pay some moderate, reasonable entry fee to sort of recoup from those visitors. Now, at the point we've received advice, there's issues of levels. There's, you know, when you do it, it may be 5-10 years down the track. That is a given. But I do hope as we move forward, we continue to promote this facility as a regional facility. You go exactly 1 kilometre, 2 kilometres, I think, max, in one direction, and you have a whole lot of wealthy multimillionaire houses that pay zero. You go across the road to Hamilton East, and you've got everyone paying, you know, humble flats, units, humble ratepayers. So we do have to address it. This is a major national and regional facility. It's not unreasonable down the track that we look at how we clip the ticket on this, but I acknowledge that there's a heap of generous fundraising that's also going on as well, and that's obviously related to the next very important item. I do want to stress that I think the access issue, and please, as soon as that bridge evolves to Peacocks, let's maximise the opportunities of pedestrian cycle access into the gardens. If we're looking at future, Lance, about speed limits along Cobham Drive into that part by Nixon Street, Grey Street, is 80k appropriate? Do we bring that down to 60? There's a number of ways where we want to, if you like, remove and try and ameliorate the physical isolation of the gardens per se, albeit, you know, the underpass, and that is a great development.
Thank you. Councillor Pascoe.
Thanks, Chair. Look, I don't disagree with any of the earlier speakers. I'd like to see the proposal when it's ready to include all of the pictures, the pretty pictures that are in here of what the future gardens are going to be. I share Councillor Mallett's concern that once we have established each of the new gardens and the fact that many of these are funded by wealthy benefactors and philanthropic groups, there is a reasonably high OPEX cost to maintain them afterwards, and that's where I see the benefits of charging going forward. If it's not to meet the capital cost, that it's to meet the OPEX. I'd also like to see the review with some degree of emphasis on what I call the non-sexy infrastructure, and that's as the gardens grow, we need more toilets, we need more car parks and so forth. And while that's covered in here, I'd like to see some emphasis around the fact that these these need to be done to complement the size of the garden activity as it continues to grow. Thank you.
Councillor Henry.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Look, I agree with what my fellow councillors have said, and especially Councillor McPherson, that we do take the gardens for granted sometimes, especially local people. And we have got this amazing asset. And I was just yesterday at our Rotary Club, and I listened to Peter Serger speaking, and it just reminded me that we need to be reminded about the gardens, and we need to be have that sort of that injection of what we've actually got, the assets we've got and how awesome they are, for us to then go out and really promote them. And I just wonder whether Peter could just go every day out to another, to a different group in Hamilton and just speak to them. Because I just heard afterwards, at the end, how excited everybody at that meeting was. And thank goodness some of them have got deep pockets. So hopefully, they were supported in some other way than just cheering you on. And I just think and again, of course, I'm also worried about the cost for the ratepayers. But if it's out there, people will take ownership of it, that it's ours, they will be a lot more open to supporting it. So I will see you at a lot more functions, Peter. I'm looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henry. That sounds like your speaking schedule for the year there, Peter. Just slide that in. I support all those comments. I take on board the comments in the questions that councillors raised around just making sure that at all stages the public understand the cost implications of the gardens. But having said that, here we have an international quality garden already, and should this over time, as money comes to the table, as it's raised, and who knows exactly how long that will be, but it will be progress, we'd have one of the very, very best gardens that anybody could travel to, with all of these themed gardens. And but I'm also, and so I've always been a great fan of that. People will come wide and far to see it. So that brings, as other people have mentioned, some pressures on the other not pretty parts of the gardens, the car parking, the toilets, the food, and all of those and the infrastructural things that you need to support that many people coming. So that will all evolve over time. I'm looking forward to, however, when Hamilton has not only this jewel in the crown, but a couple of other jewels in the crown. So we have a strong three-legged stool, one of which will be, however, the riverside develops over time, and the other one will be potentially around the zoo, Lake Waiwhakariki, because we do need a strong three-legged stool in Hamilton. We've been told this by Hamilton Waikato Tourism for over 5 years. And I think we need to take that on board. So there's going to be some investment required, councillors, into other parts of the city to make Hamilton a city that people who travel to New Zealand cannot not visit. Just in the same way as when they come, they have to go to Rotorua or Taupo or Queenstown, because those must-visit places, and we want to be one of those. So good news. Thank you, everyone. We'll go to the vote, please.
The motion is carried unanimously.
Right, well, now we will move on to the next item, item 10, and I would just like to foreshadow that I have a motion. I have a motion, please. So I'll just foreshadow that so that it can be put up at the right time. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair Paula. I think you all know John Dobson from the Hamilton Gardens Development Trust, so John and I are going to play a little bit of a tag team here, mainly here to answer your questions. I think the agenda item's reasonably comprehensive. I know a number of you have had a few discussions with staff and others around this. This has been several months in the making since the LTP. And just one point of clarification, just wanted to outline on page 46 at the bottom under point 11, there's an omission that should have had Virginia Graham's name there, Friends of the Hamilton Gardens, as part of the Hamilton Gardens Development Trust. So apologies on Helen's behalf for that omission. And I just wanted to, just to quickly outline, then I'll hand over to John from a trust perspective. you'll see here that the Trust has put forward a proposal which was asked for during the LTP when they submitted. And in usual fashion, John's worked closely with myself and my team around this. And I know you said at the LTP, John, that you wanted to make sure that that both elected members and staff were comfortable with what was going to be put forward moving forward. So, from a staff point of view, I think it's a huge tick towards a real partnership approach to this. Pretty much putting the development of the gardens on steroids. You're talking really finishing the gardens off with Peter's strategic plan, which you've just approved, which is quite significant. And as you've seen before, Hallworth report show the significant economic benefit to the city and also the social and community benefits that the gardens provide. And by having more gardens, there'll be even more. Working this through. John's team had a look at a number of options, and he can maybe talk about those if you're interested. But there are, just from a council point of view, there were a few constraints with the way that the gardens is held. It's Crown land vested in council, so council has to be the management agency under the Reserves Act. So there's sort of some red tape there which provides some constraints around what we can and can't do. Giving away control or some control to other organisations. But like I said, I think the project governance structure that's been put forward by the Trust, I think it goes beyond a similar type of entity that we had for the current development program. I think it actually beefs that up, and it provides a real opportunity to get a wider range of skills that will provide benefit to the governance of the operational delivery. But probably the key thing is the fundraising, and as Councillor Dave talked about, the communications and the promotion of the gardens too going forward, which is really important when we're looking at raising $15 million over the next 10 years. We have, in a partnership approach with the Trust and others such as the Friends, and obviously all the funders that have come to the party, ranging from individuals to philanthropic trusts to corporates. I think we've been extremely successful. It's been a real success model, and as I said, this beefed up version I think does provide a wider range of skills to move the project forward. From a staff point of view, the high-level funding plan the Trust put forward, we're very comfortable with that, and we believe that our people, such as Lisa, who's now gone on maternity leave, and her replacement Tony, working with John's team, we can carry on that partnership. And you see we've also got a new partner, Momentum, with a Provincial Growth Fund application. So we've got Kelvin and his team on board as well. So I think we're in a good shape to move this project forward and really chase down those funding opportunities that'll make the project successful outside of the money that Hamilton City ratepayers putting into it. I'll leave it there. I'll hand over to John just from a Trust perspective. The detail around the terms of reference is in the agenda item. I'm not going to labour that, and the detail around how it would work in there too, and we're happy to answer any questions on that.
Thank you, Lance. If I can just say a few words. I think when I submitted on behalf of our Trust, I was looking for a major change as to how the gardens development would be governed, and we looked about setting up a separate entity that was a little bit different, that had a little bit more power than what we're proposing today. And there were two reasons for that change in mindset. The first was the barriers to actually doing it because of the Reserves Act. That doesn't mean to say it can't be done, because the golf course has operated very well over the last 100 years, and it's reserves land as well. But the second reason, and more importantly, is that I've now become aware that there's so much momentum behind this development. The community are right behind it. Everyone's behind it. I think council is behind it, because it's a no-brainer to get this thing finished. And so what we've ended up with is a project governance group, or a PGG, which is a little bit akin to an advisory board, which will only be successful if it gets the right mix of skills around the table. This is not about representation, it's about setting up a board of people who have strong funding background, who have strong development and project management development, who have all sorts of skills yet to be identified. And what we want to do as a trust is work with council to come up with a group of people that are keen to get behind it, donate their time, and just make this thing happen. And at the end of the day, the management plan, once the consultative process is finished and it's finalised, will become the blueprint under which this PGG operates. It's not going to have carte blanche to do what it likes. It's going to be confined by the long-term plan and by that management plan. Thoughts just more recently about how we'll get the right people there. I think probably one way we can do that is for council to nominate a couple of councillors, and the trust will put a couple of people together, and that those four will put their heads together, approach a few people and come back with a short list of names, and then bring that to council for approval if that is deemed necessary. And look, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, John. Mayor King.
Could we see the proposed motion that's being flagged, because discussions and questions, if it's different from the staff recommendation, need to be...
Having said that, I haven't spoken to it, but yes, I'm happy for it to be popped up. It only makes...
Because at the moment we're asking questions about the staff recommendation. If this is different...
or the report, yeah. The intention is, if I can just speak to it a little bit, I'm not going to go into detail. The intention of that is to achieve what John has just suggested, which is a balanced representation, which I think we're all agreed about. I think at one point, whether it's through one of our appointments or through agreement, a representative of the Friends of Gardens should be there. That's my personal view. Okay, so that's what I'm hoping to achieve by that.
This jumping over the top of what we've just heard from the official reports, because they were recommending not here selecting the people, just working out how we were going to go about it. You've jumped that motion.
I'm still with all due respect, and it's not a debate between the Chamber and me at the moment, because I'd like it to. My intention is to ensure that within the overall process of appointing externals or what have you, that one, and not I haven't said who, I said a member, representative of the Friends of the Gardens should be there.
But
I'll talk to that in my
point made
debate.
was not that no one at this point were representatives as such.
Well, that's the way I feel about it.
Can I put on the table then the staff motion? Move it, thanks.
As an amendment? Where is your motion amendment? Pardon? I haven't received any other.
Councillor Ryan, I've got your amendment or motion ready to go. You just need to indicate that that's what you want to move.
Point of order, Madam Chair, and it's not to what Becca's saying, it's to, this is something new again. It's highly unusual for a chair to have an alternative motion that they jump in ahead before anyone else has had the chance to even consider what the process being followed in the meeting is, and now to hear that the Deputy Chair has an amendment to that puts us in a state of confusion.
Well, not so much. There was no recommendation on the board, and I chose to put that one, and I'm entitled to put a motion, which I have done.
Excuse me, you said before we'd even started the item that you had a motion to put up.
A motion, which I did.
From yourself, as chair.
And Councillor Henry.
Well, I'd suggest to you, as part of my point of order, that you're not entitled. You're not entitled to jump over normal procedure just because you're the chair.
I don't think that's what I'm doing. I'm following a procedure. Can you explain whether that's anything I've done is outside of...
Yeah, so Councillor Southgate put her motion at the start of the meeting, at the start of the agenda item, which isn't unusual. We do that from time to time. chairs quite frequently put their motions.
Before we even started the item, she announced that she was doing it. And I just have a real problem with the process being followed, because no one had a chart. We didn't know what she couldn't have put the motion because there was no motion read to us. It's only just come now after 3 weekends.
She just mentioned that she did have a motion that she wanted to put forward.
Well, that's not actually putting it. I'm sorry.
I have put it.
Putting it, you have to actually say what the motion is, and that's only just come up now. And and as the Mayor said, we've been discussing the report and the staff recommendation because that's all we had in front of us.
However, that is the motion. I didn't know whether there were any other amendments, and you'll have to do it in the amendment fashion now.
Well, sorry, were you aware that there was an amendment from the Deputy Chair?
On this matter, no. No.
Point of order.
When did we know that?
I emailed it last night and spoke to you about it before this meeting.
What the heck?
You spoke to me about the CAB before this meeting? Today?
When we walked in.
Oh, I don't recall that. I'm sorry, I heard the one about the CAB.
Let's throw the whole thing up there. We don't know what order we're doing.
I think it's immaterial because here we've got...
Really out of order. The Chair is putting her own motion up before there's a chance for any questioning, and having been told there's an amendment and not telling the meeting about the amendment. That's completely out of order.
I haven't seen an emailed motion from last night. Happy to have them all up and they can come in order and people can vote which way they like. Whether they support an amendment or a motion, they're still at liberty to do that. In fact, it will enable a discussion of many options. That's the way I see it. It's actually not out of standing orders, that we've had clarified.
Well,
it wasn't a deliberate intention to exclude anyone else from putting an alternative proposal, not at all, and that can still occur.
Well, I believe it's an abuse of the Chair's role to put up their own motion first before anyone has had a chance to even start discussing the issue.
I think
Now, I'd like that put on record that that's what I believe.
Okay, and you can follow that up through a formal process afterwards, but I do believe that Becky, you're telling me that there's nothing incorrect about the way I proceeded with that.
So the chair is chair. She is. I mean,
no. The standing orders. I'm sorry, Governance Advisor, say when motions can be put up and when amendments and foreshadowed motions can be put up. Now, what the words actually said by the Chair at the start, before the item started, was that I want to foreshadow a motion. That's what was said. Now, foreshadowing a motion implies an alternative to an existing one. That's in the standing orders if you'll check them.
What
the
I
words
said
used,
is
and you can check on the.
Yeah, we can. I said, and then I said I have a motion.
No, you said I wish to foreshadow. Please check the word used.
We're not going to have some churlish argument about this. We've checked the
It's not
standing
a churlish
orders.
argument if you're going outside standing orders.
We have been assured that the process was fine. We have also been assured that it's not uncommon for other chairs to lead a recommendation. It's quite commonly
after the questioning, after the item has been opened, not before the item has been opened. Could I ask through you that the governance advisors check the wording on the tape of what you said at the start when you introduced it, the raised item. You used the word foreshadow, I believe.
I think this can be dealt with by the governance staff while we proceed with questions.
You used the word foreshadow, and that's a totally different
I think this can be dealt with. Thank you, Dave. That's enough. We're going to carry on with questions, and I'm sure we are going to carry on questions, and I've asked governance staff to double check, maybe get hold of Leanne, to make sure that we haven't done anything inappropriate. Make sure that you have Councillor Hamilton's which could be an amendment at the moment. Can we do that? And we'll go on with questions. So we do have some questions, not about the process, please, about everything out where we stand on the report. Are you still questioning, Councillor Mayor King? Thank you. Oh, you are?
Yes.
Thank you.
I see in paragraph 11 on page 46 that Virginia Gray is on the Hamilton Gardens Development Trust. Sorry, Graham. Sorry, I'll just wait for the General Manager.
Lance.
Correct.
all right. So see on page 46, paragraph 11, that Virginia Graham is on the Hamilton Gardens Development Trust.
Yes.
Which we've been asked to add in. It's not on there, but we were asked to add it in.
That's correct.
And I see that the motion...
Excuse me, Council, I think it's wrong that the governance has had to leave to deal with one member. Can we just take a 10-minute adjournment so this matter can be properly resolved? Thank you. Because we haven't got Rebecca in the room anymore.